Good evening, Detroit Lakes. This is the Vikings Territory Breakdown on KDLM Sports Radio. I am your host, Joe Johnson, owner of the UFTA Sports Network, which includes VikingsTerritory.com, PurplePTSD.com, TheDraftTeam.com, FranchiseTag.com, and a lot of other great sites. Joined, as always, unless he's bottling maple syrup, by Mr. Joe Oberly. How you doing, man?
I'm good. God, it's just you and me. It's like there's a cavernous echo in here because there's somebody missing.
That's where my soul used to be. If there is a little bit of an echo, I moved actually into an apartment, like a real functioning adult, in downtown Minneapolis, stone's throw away from the Twin Stadium, Target Field. And apparently they keep the lights on full blast all night, which is great for.
There's only one thing you have to, for me to know is are there any breweries nearby? It must be Fulton and Modest.
Prize.
Oh man.
Yeah, they're all like within 2 blocks of any direction. I just noticed that.
I'll have to come visit you
on Mother's Day because I got DoorDash from my parents who stopped down, and I was looking at the map because the guy kept driving. He was a block away and he kept going around in a circle because I'm on First Street North, but across Hennepin is First Street South, which is 4 blocks away. So people get confused, and I was like, "Wow, there are a ton of breweries down here." So yeah, man, I think we're gonna do a housewarming party. But the reason I bring it up is because of the echo, but also this place is relatively large, so it's going to actually everyone internally and me on social media have referred to it as the UFTA Towers because we're going to be doing a lot of our video and audio stuff from here, so people will get familiarized with what I guess is technically a penthouse apartment.
So when we walk in there, we have to say, "Oofta, look at this place." Huh?
Yeah, you are getting ripped off, my friend. Is I think the common refrain, but it's COVID. I got to deal. It's been actually kind of a really interesting week news-wise for the Vikings. You know, there's always this abject fear after the draft and free agency that, oh no, what are we going to talk about for the next 2.5, 3 months? But
thank God for the schedule.
That and apparently. All sorts of, can I just say to start this show, I understand that I've been perhaps the biggest Cousins apologist on record of anybody in the market. I will agree with that. I was the first person to call for the Vikings to go all in to get him. But I will say, for a quarterback who mostly keeps his head down in regards to his personality and leaking things to the media, kind of the anti-Aaron Rodgers, he gets so much disrespect. I've never seen anything like it.
He keeps his head down because he's weighted down by that massive contract he has. No, I'm just kidding.
And the fact that he gets blasted in where the pocket. I was going to say in the pocket, but there's no pocket. Where the pocket should be.
I was doing a podcast with some friends recently. I used to work at the Timberwolves, and we get together and once a week and throw around all the stuff and just a side.
The podcast.
I'm sorry, did I say a podcast? I'm sorry, Zoom call. Different thing.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm hurt.
No. You're my podcast guy. Anyway, and one of the guys asked me, why does everybody hate Cousins? And, I started trying to articulate it, and he said, well, there's, one guy mentioned the contract, which is an albatross around his neck for sure. But even by today's standards of the people paid after he was, it's not as terrible as it used to be. But it's strangling It has crippled the Vikings salary cap. Anyway, there's the fact I think he wears his religion and his whole manner on his sleeve, and I think that rubs some people. Not that it should. I think he just comes off as this, perfect person, and I think when you put him in the pocket and he gets a little nervous, that makes fans nervous, and I think when he pads his numbers on in garbage time and his.
The garbage time stat is not real.
Well, I've just seen him do it a lot of games, so I don't know if there's a stat there or not. But he does get helped by that, probably not so much more than anybody else. But the problem is, it's garbage time because he doesn't win enough games and he hasn't won enough games for the Vikings. I think that's the biggest criticism because you want your quarterback to be a winner, and he's basically a 500 quarterback as a starter. And
You
you
think
want a
that's
little
on
bit,
him though?
not completely, no, heck no. But there's
I mean,
plenty of it, and
he
this
had
is
a
the most.
pretty amazing season last year after the bye. I mean, those games weren't on him by
No,
any stretch of the
I'm
imagination.
not saying that. I'm not saying that.
I know, but some people do say that.
Yes, you do expect your quarterback to win some games you might not be able to, and he probably doesn't do that enough. I'm not, you're a Cousins apologist. I'm not a hater. I'm fine with him. I think when he does well, he does really well, and he's got the skills. I get bothered by the fact that he's not more mobile than he could be. I get bothered by the fact that he does get skittish in the pocket and perhaps, maybe checks down when he shouldn't or doesn't get the big play when you need it. But, in general, I look around the league and I think the Vikings are fine with him. But I did want to get after you about your Cousins love because I think it's tainting your impression of Kellen Mond, who we haven't even seen in a purple uniform yet. I mean, you seem really down on him, Joe, and I guess I'd like to know why.
Well, first of all, with Cousins, I would say he is a lot more mobile than we all thought he was. Everyone thought he was statuesque. I mean, if you go back to 2019,
yes,
I mean, first of all, he had to roll out literally almost on every successful passing down in 2019. That having been said, the Vikings have had the most explosive offense in the league the last 2.5 years, or a year and a half. Most plays above 20 yards last season, most plays above 40 the season before that. The Justin Jefferson thing, which we'll get into, I don't understand because he just had the best rookie receiving year of in history of the modern NFL. Cousins is a top 2 or 3 quarterback in terms of accuracy on all 3 levels of the offense in the league, the history of the entire league. So I don't know what else he has to do. I understand that they don't call a lot of explosive plays because Zimmer is risk averse. He last year especially wants to run the clock out and have these long plotting drives because the defense was a liability and he didn't want the quarterbacks from the other team to be on the field. But that having been said, I think Cousins in the last 2 years is 35 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in the red zone. And I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying
in the last how many years?
2 years.
What about that pass for Green Bay that he threw in Green Bay where he had the game won that he should have thrown it away? I guess maybe it was here. It was the last. It was down in the red zone and it was 1st and goal at the 8, and he goes and throws this pass to a covered receiver when all you had to do is throw it out of bounds and live downs. That
was 2 years ago, right? Or was that 3 years ago?
It could have been 3, but that one always sticks in my mind about where I was just said, how can an 8-year veteran make that throw? But
that was a really bad throw.
It was. That's the jitters that gets to him. I don't know what that was because he was out of the pocket and he was free.
And it was
I
first
love
down.
it when he's on the run. But anyway,
he's really good in play action. By a large margin.
He's a good quarterback, Joe. He just needs to, just like he had to get over that hump of never winning this or that. He's got to win some more playoff games and take them further than they.
I do feel like if Teddy Butler would have won that Saints game the way that game went down in the playoffs, he would have a statue. I mean, the things that people.
Oh, you mean that the Seattle game?
No, the Saints playoff game.
Teddy Bridgewater against the Saints? I don't
No, I'm saying had he done that.
Oh, I see.
If you just replaced the two.
Yes. I will agree with you wholeheartedly that there is some irrational Cousins hate out there.
That's what I'm. So my point isn't that he's perfect and that he is going to get them over the hump, which I think is a weird metric because no quarterback we've ever had has gotten us over the hump, clearly. But I just think he gets this consistent disrespect from other players, from his teammates, and I don't understand why. But to get back to you about Kellen, a big rule of thumb that I have for quarterbacks that are coming into the league what did they do? Look, how's the best way to put this? If Kellen Mond couldn't do certain things in college, how can we expect him to do them in the pros? Unless he goes through some very weird.
Really? Is that the measure that we're supposed to measure by? Really? I guess I've never thought about that. I'm going to
Let
do
me
that
read
right
you
now.
his NFL draft profile and tell me what part of this you think converts to a pro quarterback. Well, with an offense with the best one-two punch of wide receivers in the league, and that has been the most explosive offense. Let's see. Here we go. Quarterback with dual threat physical tools who has grown and matured into a role as a confident game manager. The Aggies' offense asked too much of Mond in the past, which led to diminishing returns.
That's
However, However, the 2020 offense featured a strong rushing attack paired with play action, where he not only found greater confidence and rhythm as a passer, but poise and accuracy. He often doesn't get antsy working from the pocket. He throws an okay ball with placement underneath. Issues with touch and anticipation, which creates erratic completion numbers when asked to throw down the field or outside the numbers, which should concern evaluators. He has some RPO value, but he lacks the consistency to ever become more than a solid backup.
I like the fact that he's confident in the pocket. I don't like the fact that he's not very accurate downfield. You flip those two or give. It's like he's more confident than Cousins, but he's less accurate than Cousins. In what you're saying right there.
Yeah, it's almost like a weird mix of Teddy and Case Keenum mixed together, because Teddy was very chill, almost like he was not. This quote from Zimmer was, "I wish he played the first 57 minutes or 58 minutes like the last two." But the reason we brought Cousins in and that we overpaid and changed the way that contracts were done in the NFL forever was because Case Keenum was mobile, but he couldn't make all the throws on the field, and he often would check down, run to pick up a couple yards, or check down to the dump off guy when Adam Thielen or Diggs were wide open down the field. And that's why they replaced him, even though he almost got us to the Super Bowl. And I just feel like
they couldn't give him the whole offense either. He was not playing
totally.
The whole,
yeah. I mean, the way Luke Brown used to always break it down to us is he has two options on each play: deep ball, short ball, and he had most of the time with the short ball, or he ran. And so I just feel like all these people crowning, Mond as Patrick Mahomes 2.0. I just don't, I do feel like he can maybe develop his passing game a little bit more. But it reminds me of like the Timberwolves when they take like a shooting guard who doesn't have a jump shot, but they're like, he'll develop it, but he's good on defense. It's like that never really happens. And
sure,
so,
it's a great point, but it's it can be said the same way the other way. I agree with you. I don't know why anybody's crowning him yet because he hasn't played yet. But by the same token, I don't know that you can negate any possibilities yet because you haven't seen him.
No, but I'm just saying it's a very valid concern to me that if he can't make all the throws, he's erratic. He's the diminishing returns thing. Also the fact that Zimmer flipped out on DeFilippo about being an RPO offense, and apparently that's what they want now. I think Zimmer wants a confident game manager. I really do. I mean, I think he wants to pay $15 million a year for the quarterback, and he wants that guy to dink and dunk. But it takes an actual underrated amount of efficiency to do that kind of stuff that Cousins did, because you have to score a touchdown on every drive, otherwise you end up like the Bucks game last year, where the time of possession was like triple Vikings to Bucks, but we kept kicking and missing field goals, so they ended up beating us significantly. You know what I mean? I just unless he's going to run the ball in all the time. But if Jefferson is upset now and he's wide open down the field, I don't think this offense has 2 years post Cousins to figure stuff out.
That's kind of a short segue to Jefferson. I read or heard the stuff that he said, and I wouldn't say upset, but the fact that he's questioning it. He's only had 1 year in the league, but he had a monster year, like you said earlier, and Cousins is the guy that got him the ball. I mean, if you have problems with this offense after putting up 1,400 yards in your rookie season and setting records, there's only speculation and dreaming is going to get you any more in the near future, because I'm a little bit amazed at what he's saying, and I hope
in a run first offense, by the way.
Right, exactly. And if they can't drill into this guy's head and some of these other ones, which they couldn't do with Diggs, is that a run-first offense can open up plays for you. If you think the game of football is all pass, you're not paying attention. It's
Hmm.
been that you need both active in this league, and the teams that have, I mean, you can win with an all pass league. But even the Chiefs, who is one of the most dynamic offenses that we've seen in years, still had a decent running game the past
Yeah.
couple of years. It's not great, but it's So what if you're building your line to open up for Dalvin Cook? That just makes all these defenders going to have to not sell out for the run, and then they have to pay attention. They might get one-on-one coverage with guys like with Jefferson and Thielen and who's the name of our tight end now?
Irv Smith.
Yes, I mean that's people you have to pay attention to. You get another third receiver in there and look out. So I just I get really now. Granted, people are when they're being interviewed, they're just answering questions, and who knows if they change their mind the next day. But no offense to Justin Jefferson, I think he's a great student of the game, but I don't know if he's got it figured out yet. So just
Yeah.
slow your roll just a little bit.
And I saw this really. It was like 2 in the morning when I wrote the article. And I was on the fence as to whether or not he was really dragging Cousins, because he basically was saying,
Right.
like, he reminds me of Burrow, except for Burrow's more confident and he can take hits, but they don't have the strongest arm, but they always get the ball like very. Basically said they're very accurate. And make all the throws accurately.
Mm-hmm.
It was the comment after that about Justin Fields that that made me feel like, okay, this is all. I'm not reading into it too much. He's essentially saying that Justin Fields is in the division now, and he's an elite quarterback, and now we have
college.
We all have to compete with that now, which implies that Cousins isn't good or as good. Yeah, again, Ohio State quarterback, Big Ten, blah blah blah, in college.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yes.
a very big roll of the dice. I would argue the most difficult position to go from college to the pros in all of pro sports, without a doubt. It's not even
Yes.
close. And so, yes, things have changed. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where the rule of thumb was never start a rookie because you can ruin them. And now they expect rookies to win Super Bowls and be MVPs because that's kind of what has happened. And so I get where it comes from, and I also understand that wide receivers that are really, really good always have, for the most part, this sort of narcissistic trait. Like it's a reason that they work so hard. They're getting double covered. They have to beat the guys in front of them. It's a very me sort of position, but you get tired of it.
But what are the Vikings supposed to do if they don't draft a quarterback this year, and as early as they did, and try to at least look forward to the future and finally develop somebody that they think can maybe take over for Cousins? They're going to be strapped to a Cousins contract for the next how many years that cripples them. So they have to start
I agree with you.
doing this.
I don't think they can. I think his contract next year is untenable. I've said that in my articles. I also think that they really should have traded up for Fields then, because that clearly was their guy. They couldn't believe he was available. They were stung and very surprised by what the Bears did.
What did the Bears trade for him?
That actually, let me look that up because I
know
don't want to misstate it.
Yeah, I know the quote from Zimmer was that, or from Spielman was that it was too expensive. They did look up at, trading up for him. They did like him, and he was there for them to get, but they were surprised at how much people were looking for them to trade up to grab him.
And I said this last week, so I don't want to just disregard that, but I also said that I understand that they couldn't do that because then they wouldn't have, they would have lost
offensive line.
Yes. They couldn't do both, and I understand
that's my point. Yes, that was my point. They're going to look for, they would have had to give up their first, but they would have got the first.
Well, see, the Bears went up 9 spots. The Vikings would have only gone up 3. But they traded their first round, their 20th pick, obviously, and the 5th round pick this year, and their 1st and 4th next year. Yikes. So I don't know if the Vikings would have had done obviously that much to go up 3 spots. But if there was a bidding war with the Bears interdivisionally,
And look what they got out of not jumping up. They got Darisaw and Wyatt, plus a quarterback that could work out.
A project linebacker that has a lot of potential.
Yes. So, I mean, that's when you say they should have traded up for him, then you have to balance that with this is what you lose.
Yeah, but I also think in like
It's
5 years, if
important.
Fields is just the new Rodgers and is punishing us left and right, we'll probably forget about a lot of that stuff.
No question. However, do you think that's going to happen?
Do
Fields is surrounded by a pretty damn good team, and you don't know how much of that is him and how how he what does when he does.
This is not something I should say aloud as somebody who,
Nobody's listening, so go ahead.
I always have these things where it's like if I can't envision it, I don't see it happening, and that I don't mean that literally, like that's how I dictate my takes or anything, but I've just been so used to the Bears being kind of the Vikings mirror in regards to never being able to draft or develop a quarterback, and I just can't imagine them having this amazing powerhouse offense with this really MVP level quarterback. But that's just because I've never seen it. I think of any Ohio State quarterback in the last 15 years or whatever, he's got the best chance to succeed. But you're right. The reason a lot of these guys don't is because the Ohio State is a powerhouse and they have just so much talent. It's kind of like LSU,
Yep.
but that seemed to be working out because everyone was just super good, which is why they broke all those records. And so you never know, but I think he does have all the tools, more so than a lot of the guys in the past from Ohio State that were more maybe just mobile. You could just throw it up to wide open guys, whereas Fields is he's got the arm and everything. I think that people would want. But just to put a pin in the Mond thing, I just think that. Again, people need to remember why they moved on from Case Keenum in the first place, and it was because the offense was limited, and they realized that under Zimmer, even with the spot by spot, roster position by roster position on that defense, which was astounding. The Vikings needed a grade 2 elite offense to get over the hump and beat teams, which we thought at the time were like the Eagles, and that's why Cousins is here. And so just pump the brakes on these expectations. It's going to take a while, one way or the other, and let's just see what Cousins can do, maybe with a line that looks on paper to actually be halfway decent for once, which would be nice.
Which would be Mond's line for the future, so. He must, he's not going to have to be. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, just also like RG3, we get it. You're mad that you lost your roster spot to Cousins. Stop trying to get in the news. He's insulted him twice now in like a week. He said Kellen Mond is everything Cousins isn't. He's a big physical quarterback who can run and throw it all over the field. No, he isn't. That's objectively untrue.
He can throw it all over the field. Doesn't mean he's going to complete them.
Somebody commented on my article about pumping the brakes on the hype. He goes, "Why are you bad-mouthing Case Keenum? He hit wide receivers down the field numerous times." And I said, I hope a pro quarterback hits an open guy down the field numerous times. That's kind of an anecdotal way of saying something. Statistically, that's not true, though, across the board. That's the entire point. And just because I'm pointing that out doesn't mean I'm disparaging him. But I do disparage Stefon Diggs from time to time because I just don't like how he conducts himself, and I also don't like if there's anything that I try to be, it's very transparent on my biases and my bad takes because I don't think there's a lot of accountability in this industry. And I think something that Adam Thielen proved this week, part of this is rivalry. That's the fun of it. It's sort of like, how dare you just happen to be born somewhere else 50 miles that way. It's not real hate. It's just part of the fun. Thielen showed that. I do think Diggs is kind of a jerk, but I make fun of Buffalo, the city of Buffalo sometimes, and it's really just lighthearted stuff. Like Bills Mafia makes sense because neither the Bills or the Mafia or the.
I read it. You and me.
I have an acid tongue from time to time, but it's stuff like Bills Mafia makes sense because neither the Mafia or the city of Buffalo have been relevant since the early '90s. People commenting in between their full-time jobs, giving people directions to get away from Buffalo. Just really funny jokes. But people take it really seriously, and
of course,
it was on radio stations in Buffalo. Apparently, like people were like, "Let's find
your story." Your story was?
Yeah, people were like, "Let's find this guy's Twitter. Let's send this to Diggs." Because he loves this stuff, and then one guy's like, "Well, I can't because Diggs blocked me," and I was like, "What? Somebody say something about that." I'm not gonna hop in here, but my Twitter is visible like 3 times on the page. So it's kind of funny that they need a detective to figure it out. But it's all I said in the article too. I love you. I kid because I love, whatever.
Yeah. That's kind of specious anyway. I kid because I love. People say that, but that's just their way of not getting yelled at and then they're saying that with their hand out front and the one behind is stealing your pocket. So I
big time. But the point of that whole article with Diggs is I just wanted to say if you boil down Diggs' argument and what he thinks he was betrayed over, it makes no sense. This team, his rookie year, Adrian Peterson had his last good year. This was never an arena football offense. If Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers can't get notified of personnel decisions, why would they say, hey, that receiver that's never cracked 1,000 yards, that's missed 2 or 3 games every single season, let's make sure that he understands that we're going to draft Dalvin Cook. It's nonsense. And my point with the fans is, if you're telling me that Diggs matured at 27 between the summer of joining the Bills, that first of all implies that he was immature in Minnesota, which lends credence to what I'm saying. A. B. When in the history of humankind is somebody that's been rewarded in every way possible for bad behavior changed that behavior? I said, I can admit that I'm bitter because Diggs was my favorite player, and I don't like how he's handling himself continuously. But all you have to admit is I like Diggs because he's on my team, and he helps my team now, and he's a good football player. He doesn't need to be a perfect human being either. But everyone's saying he's a saint, and he mentors young children, and he drove the Snakes out of Ireland, and it's just like it doesn't need to be all those things. Let's just admit that. They're
going to put a statue of him downtown Minneapolis for the Minneapolis Miracle, Joe. Come on.
He probably wouldn't like it. It wouldn't be big enough or not enough gold leaf.
I've got to quit reading. The more I read about Diggs, and I got to quit reading your stories on him because the less I like. I didn't know about this most recent tweak at Minnesota, soda as he called it. And it's interesting that he uses it in a derogatory way this week when it's the week that Kevin Garnett is getting put into the Hall of Fame, and he used soda famously out of love. So I thought that was
not a coincidence, or at least it shows the cavern between the two.
Right, and the more and more I see, I just I think there's a lot of what you are spot on about him, that it is about Diggs, and it's not about it's about he wants to win, but he wants to make sure that he's instrumental in that.
That is literally verbatim the quote from his supporters in that ESPN article. Diggs wants to win, but he wants to be the reason that you win more.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. Football is not that kind of game, and certainly one receiver in a 3-receiver package is not. Right there, you have 3 receivers. If you just throw the ball to one, it's easy to defend. It's just silly to think like that. And I always bring up the fact how when I was in high school and playing tight end, I was open every play, and never, when I didn't get the ball and complained about it. But so I understand where that mentality comes from. You don't want to be what do you call it? You don't want to be the guy that runs down there and runs down there and runs down there and runs back and never gets the ball. I get it, but you better start understanding darn quick how the game is played if you want to be successful. Like we were just saying earlier, you got to have both. You have to have a running game and a passing game to help each other out. And I'm sorry, Thielen's a goddamn good receiver, and he came up the same time as Diggs, and you look down the line, and he's every bit as good as you were, and every bit as important to the team as Diggs was. So that's under lack of understanding on his part, and if it continues as you're kind of predicting in your piece that he, wait till they start losing, like they lost in the playoffs this year.
Well, I said this hyperbolically, and I admitted it as much, but I thought there was a little thread of truth that team that has no running back whatsoever did not draft one, did not draft another receiver till the 6th round. They brought in
they got Zach Moss.
Yeah, but what did he have last year? 500 yards?
Yeah. Well, Diggs had him.
You know, it's like once that's the betrayal. I just don't understand it. Like, and then the whole Cousins thing. He had 106 catches the first year Cousins was here, which was also the first year he had 1,000 yards. And the reason he got drafted or traded for a first round pick was because of his stats after Cousins got here. So,
Yeah,
you know,
I don't think it's Cousins as much as it's the way the offense was, the
yeah.
makeup of it, in drafting a
He's
running
like,
back. And
you're
I
peeing
think
on my leg and telling me it's rain, and it's like, what are you
yes.
talking about, dude? They drafted a running back in the second round. Adrian Peterson was here. I don't see how Zimmer suddenly betrayed him when he had his great 700-yard season or whatever. It's just, and so we're just again another pin. For people that from Minnesota, that I was like, why do you cover this? This isn't even about football. And it's like, first of all, yes, it is about football. Second, we do things a little bit differently with our stuff. Like I had a meeting yesterday with a gal who's the biggest female Minnesota Vikings fan slash brand. Does radio and stuff of anybody, and she wants to do stuff like articles on best places to tailgate, and if you're coming in from out of town, here's the best Vikings bars and stuff. And it's like nobody does. She was, I was nervous that you wouldn't do that because nobody does stuff like that. And I was like, that's kind of what we're all about. But part of what we comment on is that kind of stuff, not just strictly X's and O's, so on and so forth. I mean, people were dragging AJ Mansour, who writes for us, because he commented on the Julio Jones quote unquote rumor.
Mm-hmm.
And it came from I saw it and I didn't write about it because the guy that put it out there, I think, just clearly made it up, and everyone just kind of put out there. There's a lot of people who just throw a million takes and claim to have sources, and sometimes they're right because they just guess. So I didn't cover it, but AJ did, and the way he covered it was to dispel it because it was out there in the zeitgeist. And people are like, why would you cover such a whatever? And it's like, because that's part of what we do is filter through some of the stuff, because not everybody's super internet savvy and they see it in Google News and they think, oh my God, Julio Jones.
If it's on TV, it's got to be true. If it's on
so yeah, it's part of the fun. But getting back to Adam Thielen and Lambeau, I've never been to Lambeau before, but
I have
like
a few times.
Obviously, Lambeau is like the Wrigley Field of the NFL. It has history. It's great. He's just doing his job. He's from Minnesota. He knows what he's doing.
Well, that's the key that's missing in this thing. The guy grew up a Vikings fan.
Yeah.
All right. And if he's tweaking the Packer fans a little bit, he's having fun with them.
That's what I said in my article.
Yes, and everybody took the comment out of context, which is what happens so often these days. He says, he loves going out there. It's a great place to play, blah, blah, blah. And you look up, and I have been in the visiting football locker room of Lambeau Field. I've been in there. I could hardly find someone to talk to. It is trash. It is a terrible locker room. And it's like someone else said, that's what you're supposed to do for the visitors, is give them a bad locker room. I remember Kevin McHale once saying that the locker room in Boston Gardens for the visitors was just terrible. They'd always Red Auerbach would have the heat turned off or something, and just make it miserable for the opposing team.
Can you elaborate a little bit on like what the locker room, like what it looks like? Is it small? Does it leaking
small,
pipes?
And it's I wouldn't go that far, but it's a maze. You go around, like you go to the Vikings locker room at either the Dome or at where they are now, or even at TCF Bank Stadium. They're big open rooms where with the lockers all the way lying down the side of the wall, and all the media can walk in and move around and get to the person they see. When I was in Lambeau, I went down to get who was I? I can't remember who I was wanting to talk to, but I went down there and moved around. You're walking around a labyrinth, like a maze of lockers, all cattywampus this way, that way, trying to find somebody. And you have to walk through that entire maze if you're looking for a specific person, because it's not like you can just look in the entire room and say, okay, there he is, and go get your quote. So it's small, it's cramped. It's you're on top. You're tripping over their equipment, their shoulder pads. It's not great. I can imagine any visitor would have the same thoughts.
And especially with new stadiums and how like next level things have become.
Yes, On the other hand, Joe, my first time to Lambeau, I sat up near the top of the stadium, and every seat in that house you can see. It's wonderful. It's a great place to watch football game. They're all bench seats. That's fine. It's like college. It's like the TCF Bank Stadium when you're sitting
I
on
kind of
those.
like bench seats, but
Yes,
I'm also a bigger
yes,
person, so
exactly.
like you bring a cushion, it's fine.
All I care about is the sightlines. So can you see the game? Can you do you have a good view of it at both ends or whatever? And so, and that's what Adam said. I saw a thing where he was talking about it after, and he was just kind of chuckling because he goes, his wife was even busting on him saying, "How could you say that? That's the greatest place, football stadiums." And he says, "Yeah, even my wife's going after me." So. So he was having fun, and I thought it was great. And if people get bent out of shape, well, I guess there's other things in life that we can get bent out of shape up to not worry about that. Take it with a grain of salt. Good on you, Adam. But he just talked about how he got lit up on social media, which was kind of funny.
Yeah, people do take. I mean, I get that a lot. People are, you take it. Well, you take football so seriously, and it's like, well, a lot of it's tongue in cheek. I mean, I fully admit I love football. It's an emotional thing for me. It's everyone. I think has a different relationship with the Vikings, but like for a lot of us, it's a family bonding thing, a male bonding thing with our family, our stoic Scandinavian, ancestry. And but at the same time, like that's the kind of thing that's just like, yeah, he's clearly trying to do this to rile people up. So you're just giving him what he was looking for. Also, if Lambeau was so great, then why does Rodgers want out? Talk about a professional segue. That mess doesn't seem to be getting any better.
I had a buddy, a friend of mine from Oregon, who's always been a Packers fan. He called and sent me a text asking him about it. I said, "Well, I see most of what you are seeing, but I tell you, like you just said, Joe, it's not moving in the right direction." I fully expect. I said last week, and I still felt that until very recently that they'll get it worked out. I mean, Wilson's not gone out of Seattle. Watson's
You know why neither of them are gone?
Because nobody wants to trade for him, or
because if the Seattle traded Wilson, they'd have to pay $45 million for him to play elsewhere, and for Aaron Rodgers, it'd be $35 million for the Packers. Deshaun Watson his career is basically over. They think so. That's why it's not going to happen. Otherwise, I honestly do think it would have happened more so with Rodgers than with Russell Wilson.
So I just don't think that the Packers are that dumb to get rid of him, or to let him go somehow. But I also don't see Rodgers not playing. He's got only a few years left, and if he's quarterback sits out a year and doesn't keep, granted, I saw something online where he's got TB's,
he has tuberculosis.
No, he's got Tom Brady's regimen for he's doing some kind of Tom Brady thing.
The diet.
Yeah, to stay in
Kirk
shape.
Cousins does that too.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe he's not going to hurt his career
the blood of small
by sitting out a year, but we'll see how well that goes for a person when we see Michael Pierce line up this year. I mean, that's hard for a player to take a whole year off,
especially if he really wants to like make records.
Right, and you're in your mid-40s, so I just don't see it happening. But like I told him, I said, all I care about is I hope the drama continues and it just disrupts this team well into the season. And
I mean, how do you have a meeting during the season in that quarterback room? That sounds awful.
Yeah.
Also, I honestly think the solution is the Vikings should trade Kellen Mond for like 6 first-round picks because he's the future. Ooh, swing and a miss. I gotta get more sounds on the soundbar because there's a lot of the times when I say things that fall flat that I have all these like Simpsons quotes in my head, and so that's gonna be. I'm gonna class this show up a little bit in the next couple weeks.
Well, we wouldn't want to do that. Then I'd have to come dressed for it instead of just in pajamas when I do it. So,
but I think you're right. I think that any of this it benefits the Vikings. I do think that. The Vikings were, strangely like 1 or 2 small things away from making the playoffs, the expanded playoffs last year. Somehow the Bears ended up in. They were 8-8. The Vikings were 7-9. I am a little terrified of the prospect of if Fields, takes off as a rookie. and is mobile, which has always been kind of the Achilles heel of the Zimmer defense. They always seem to be a quarterback away the last couple seasons. So, I'm a little more strangely concerned about them than the Packers. But we actually got an inside scoop today from Dustin Baker, our MVP, who got the entire season leaked out to him, not just the first week. And so he basically said with 98% certainty, a source has divulged the season to him. Which, can I just say, I love Dustin, but he's also been doing this for less than a year, and he gets more scoops. And man, it's like I'm doing something backwards. I'm just
no, you hired him, so
there you go. Silver lining. I'm just teasing. But there's always truth in jest, right? So here's the schedule. Opening.
What is his source? I'm looking at it, and
it's a legit source.
Is it?
Yeah, it's one of those. I want to remain anonymous, but there's this guy that drives around my neighborhood, and he has like a cargo van, that has no windows, and he just was like, "Hey, what's up? I want to hear about the Vikings." So I just got in there. I don't remember much after that, but I came out with a schedule and a bad taste in my mouth. But
okay. The schedule that he's got some of the stuff we've heard. Got Green Bay on Sunday Night Football.
Didn't they already kind of don't they like semi? We already knew the opponents, just not the dates.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Knew the opponents, and we knew where. Who was coming here and who the Vikings going on the road, and we knew they released the first game against Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. We know that. But they also heard that there was. They said Sunday Night Football on January 2nd, Vikings at Packers. So, nice little snowball for the Vikes. If that's the case.
And I always feel like the Vikings, regardless of what, they always say if, you have a bad year that you get an easier schedule, so on and so forth. I just always feel like that never happens. And this is kind of a rough schedule.
It is.
The Bengals, the Cardinals, the Seahawks again, the Browns. Those are all teams either on the up and up or that are good.
But that division, the Bengals, the Browns, and the Steelers.
Yeah, Steelers.
That's a division that the whole NFC North plays. So you're not going to get anything better. You're not going to get a break from that.
Yep.
What really makes a difference is those opponents on the other divisions that we have to play, like Dallas, who probably finished similar to the Vikings did. Like Vikings finished third, right?
Yep.
And San Francisco.
Every nationally televised game, every night game, Thursday night, Monday night, Sunday night, are on the road. All four of them.
Nice. Well, that's what happens when you finish 8-8 or 7-9.
Yeah, look at that though. Like the Panthers is, the Lions are going to be bad. The Panthers, Cowboys, like you said, the Ravens on the road, the Chargers on the road. Wait a minute.
What?
Okay, I get it. The way he did it, I was confused. I was like, these are all on the road. Yeah, Chargers. Actually, Sunday Night Football, the Cowboys is at home. I was wrong about that. Actually, 3 of the 4 are at home. Wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 2. It's 2 and 2. Okay.
They're at the Packers and at the Bears Monday and Sunday Night Football. They're at home against the Cowboys
and the Steelers,
which is on nice. Halloween night.
Woo-wee! Didn't we have that last year?
I don't think so.
Or was it Christmas? I think it was Christmas. The Saints game, yeah. I mean, these are a lot of really interesting games. Like, we're really going to know where the Vikings stand midway through this season. You know what I mean? And
the first quarter of the season is tough. Bengals, Cardinals, Seahawks, Browns. That's right out of the gate. Those are 4 tough games. There's no question about it.
They can't do the typical, and I'm including Cousins mainly. This pre-bye doldrums, and then they come out of the bye and he's perfect. It needs to be they need to be consistent. And I don't know where you stand because we haven't really talked about this much, but there is a lot of more of this out there on other sites and stuff than I actually thought there'd be. But there's kind of a general consensus that this is the make or break year for Zimmer. Maybe Spielman, maybe not. But
Yeah,
Uh,
I see a lot about that. I see that, and I think, you know, I have my hats off to them with the way they navigated through the salary cap and made some subtractions and made some additions
I agree with
in
you.
free agency. So I think they've got that message as well. I don't know if they got it from Ziggy and Mark Wilf, but I think they realize they just got re-upped. I think before last season, so they
Hmm.
have maybe a 3 years contract or whatever. But so they probably need to get back into the playoffs and maybe win a game or two to not to save their jobs, but to buy them that last year and say, okay, you guys are moving in the right direction again. We'll keep rolling with you.
Because they fired Brad Childress like a year and a half after his extension.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that the team really expects. Like I think there were valid reasons last season to say let's write this one off. COVID, tons of injuries on the defense.
Yep.
I think this season, one of the biggest contingencies is that still people aren't really talking about. We haven't had a lot of updates about is Daniil Hunter.
Daniil Hunter. I was just going to ask you.
Yeah, we started working with Vikes Central, this really large Vikings sort of news Twitter account. Brett Peterson is the author, and he's been writing a lot of great stuff for the sites. And he wrote about Daniil Hunter this week, and I just was thinking, if he comes back and he's healthy and he's Daniil Hunter again, like, yikes.
Yeah.
That line is so.
Huge deal.
I'm so excited about the interior of the defensive line, just having those big guys clogging things up, and having Kendricks and Barr back, and obviously
weren't they like
Smith.
26th against the rush?
Mm-hmm. They didn't even really have a real nose tackle.
Yeah.
They had a 3-tech playing nose tackle. So that alone, the fact that they went 7-9 considering, and then you have maybe a mediocre offensive line even, and Justin Jefferson acclimating to the league more physically because he's obviously like a 12-year Keyshawn Johnson veteran mentally. It's there's just some exciting stuff going on. I told you last week I'm on the hope train.
I'm not going to quash it here, but I just got to say, the things you all listed, there are a bunch of ifs in there. That offensive line's got to gel quickly. That Daniil Hunter's got to be healthy and want to stick his neck in there literally, and everything's got to coalesce a little bit. And there are a few ifs, but if they all work in the Vikings' favor, and Kirk Cousins takes it up even another level if he can, that could be a great season.
What did you say earlier that was very true? When I say I kid because I love, it's more of a manipulation in and out. All those ifs that I put out there are my way of being able to say down the road that I wasn't wrong.
There you go.
See, transparency, right?
That's right.
Accountability. I'm all about it. While I brood from my empty penthouse. That's a good way. That's a good place to put a pin.
I'll bring them back next week, Joe.
That's how you get them. I do want to. We got finally some of the final rough draft design elements of the Oofta Sports app that I've hinted towards a little bit. That is going to be coming hopefully by the beginning of July. And it was just, Joe, you would know this better than basically anybody. That app and this business plan has been not only years in the making, but there was tenuous at points whether or not this was ever going to happen financially. Sometimes it seemed like a pipe dream. There's a lot of moving parts to it, which I'll explain down the road. And so seeing that it's actually being built was just this huge emotional thing for me, and I'm just incredibly humbled by it. I'm so excited, and we wouldn't be able to even do it without the support of people who listen to our shows, the show like this, who read our stuff, and then internally without the loyalty and friendship and guidance as my mentor through all this craziness from you. And so I posted some of those screens on our social media, and I'll include them in the article about this show on Vikings Territory and Purple PTSD. But it's going to really, all the sites that I ran out of breath explaining at the jump of the show are all going to be centralized there, plus a bunch of other Vikings and Minnesota sports blogs, over 50 podcasts that are all Minnesota sports podcasts or video shows, and a ton of community features. We want to be like the center of, that zeitgeist I keep referencing. So stay tuned for that. But
Joe, you earned
I'm so excited.
You earned it. So I mean, as much as it's a dream coming to fruition, it's yours. You worked your tail off for it. So be proud, be happy, enjoy it. Oh, I only have one word to say about the whole thing. Oofta.
It's fun interviewing interns this week that aren't from here, and they have no idea what that means. And I always just say it's like the forget about it scene from Donnie Brasco, just the Scandinavian version. It means everything. And so, we will be back next week and every week in perpetuity. But again, thanks to everyone in the KDLM audience that listen to the show, that come onto the website, comment on social media, all of it. It means a lot to us, clearly. So thank you, and we shall be back again next week. But this has been the Vikings Territory Breakdown on KDLM Sports for the 12th of May, 2021. Skol.